Every day, you essentially pay your dues by doing the harder thing when it's the right thing to do.
And I know there's been conversation on different levels of combining Big Ten men's and women's and combining national men's and women's. And I love that idea because ultimately the fans that watch women's gymnastics would love to watch men's gymnastics and vice versa. You know, I know every time we competed with teams that would have like a Beauty and the Beast meet with wrestling, those wrestling fans, especially in the Big Ten, wrestling's huge. Those fans would love to watch gymnastics, and gymnastics fans would love to watch wrestling. Ultimately, they're elevating both sports by combining and having a fun event that you can take your son and your daughter to. Like, how cool is that? And so I definitely would love to see more collaboration between the sports. Anything the women's side can do with this crazy growth position we're in right now to help men's gymnastics is what we should be doing, because to see men's gymnastics go away would be a huge loss.
Yeah. And I would love nothing more than to have a 4-day event of both nationals where it turns into like a mini Congress, right? So like the guys can take the Friday, Sunday spots. And honestly, like it would be, as someone who works with a lot of programs consulting wise, like it would be great to have a day off in between and not have like a relentless schedule for those, for the teams that make it. But like having the girls do Thursday, Saturday night, they still get the prime time Saturday night, elevated stage situation. And the guys could do Friday and Sunday, but you could also turn it into a massive, like fun event for a 3-day weekend in some town. There's like vendors, there's more sponsorships, there's way more viewership. Like that would be, I would block my schedule every single year to go with that for the rest of my life. That'd be dope.
Like, he's very meticulous about teaching. Even if someone has lifted before, he's really good about being like, okay, let's like break this down so that no one gets hurt trying to do this,
Sure.
And I remember just being confused. I wouldn't say I was very sore, so to speak. Definitely felt it here and there, but I started feeling stronger already. And something I know that I always struggled with in club is I could never end a floor routine with a double pike. I just didn't have the endurance. My legs didn't have the strength. I just couldn't do it. And Bev is huge about ending with the double pike. Before the added bonus came in where you get an extra temp for ending with it, that was kind of her curriculum, was like, we want an E-pass combo and with a double back or a double pike. And that was my goal. And between cardio and conditioning workouts in the gym and Lou really helping us with leg strength and body strength, I did it all 4 years. And so I think a big thing when it comes to lifting is that Lou and the whole athletic, training team, athletic training and lifting, they know what they're talking about. They know how to make you stronger. They know how to work on body parts to help make it stronger. And
I think one of the things I really love about having people who really understand gymnastics is you can just detect way more empathy coming through the broadcast. And I think the one that pops out the most to me is I was listening to the live stream on the Olympics when Simone had a really tough day on vault, and John and I want to say it was either Bridget or I forget, it might be Bridget. I was so happy that John and Bridget were the ones commentating there, because they did a very good job of like nobody wants to commentate that. Like nobody wants to watch someone on their hardest day go through it. It's like it hurts at an emotional level, particularly for John and Bridget, because they know exactly what that stage feels like. But John and Bridget handled it like with so much grace. And they were like, we don't really know what's going on, and our heart goes out to her, and like, let's not jump to conclusions. Meanwhile, Twitter is like just like torching, like, this girl's a quitter and this and that. Like I was so grateful to have John there. And I think I'm also very grateful sometimes, back to the Achilles tears, is as someone who's active in that research field, man, like sometimes mid-season, I'm like, when someone steps up for like a tumbling pass, I'm like, oh, like I'm real nervous. And so if something happens like that, like, man, it's so good to have you or someone who really understands the sport, like get through that awkward moment. Because God knows that's the worst moment, right, for the athlete.
It's awful. And you don't want to go back and watch that meet, because let's be honest, we all go back and watch it and hear the commentator just start spewing stuff, We've all been there. I've been there so many times. When you fall 3 times on an event, been there. It sucks. But ultimately, like, we're all human beings. We all have hard days, and injuries happen either on national television, on a stream, in the gym, they happen. And so something that I agree with you completely, I would say it's one of the hardest things in the world. or if someone has been, she got a 10 last weekend and completely has just a terrible routine the next weekend. Your heart goes out to them. For me specifically this year, one of the hardest things I had to do was commentate the beam stream at nationals when Michigan had just not the rotation they wanted. And I had to remind myself that I am an impartial person who's telling viewers what's happening, but I also am a Michigan alum who loves gymnastics, loves Michigan, and my heart is breaking.
Yeah.
And so it's an odd line to kind of flirt with, because you want people to feel that you're feeling for them, because again, triumph or turmoil, that's sports. And it's our job as analysts and commentators to tell viewers how much it sucks without saying how much it sucks.
Yeah.
But I also needed to remind myself that like, this is going to change who goes to the final day of competition. And my job is to share that information, even if I don't want to.
Right.
And so it's really tricky, but definitely having the knowledge of what we have when it comes to these situations of counting falls, dropping falls, et cetera, and then injuries. Of course, it's the worst, but it's something that you don't want to ever be in the scenario to have to handle. But when you do, you just have to be authentic, in my opinion. We're doing a beam inter squad. It's our last practice before nationals. So as a senior, it's my last practice in Dawn Shepherd gym. And we do a beam inter squad, and my teammate and classmate, Emma McLean, was really pushing to get into the beam lineup. She was killing it in practice, like unbelievable level of difficulty, and her beam was beautiful. And so we kind of played around with 2 beam lineups. We did one with one person and one with Emma. And we go in to do it. I'm first, I fall in the inner squad. And then the second girl goes and like big wobbles, whatever. And Emma goes, she does a standing layout series. And on the first layout, slips, and her hand goes straight down onto the beam and breaks 3 fingers. And is rushed to the doctor. So her last practice of her life, she breaks her hand. And I'm like an emotional wreck, whatever. And I remember Bev coming over to all of us, like the second half of the lineup hasn't even gone yet. And Bev came over to us and she was like, this sucks, but are we going to finish this practice with a good mindset for Emma? Or are we going to sit here and cry about it? And I remember all of us getting in a huddle, and Lexi, one of my teammates, she was like, I think we should just start the inner squad over again. And we were all like, yeah, let's do it. And we started over. We had a great inner squad, whatever. It was such a tough moment, but as athletes, we needed to decide in that moment, are we going to be down on ourselves and upset, or are we going to push through? Because what if this were a situation that happened at a meet and we need to redo our mindset? And I just remember that so vividly, us being like, this is terrible, but let's just do it. Killer beam rotation in the inner squad. And then we all cried because she got hurt on the last day. But ultimately, it was like a mindset thing. And as athletes and as analysts and fans and commentators, we need to know that you can change your mindset when you need to get done what you need to get done. I would say my piece of advice is, if you have a dream school, there's no reason why you can't go. And I've heard a lot of people say things like, oh, Michigan or UCLA or Oklahoma is my dream school, but I'll talk to some of the other schools that I'll likely get into. How do you know? What if they need exactly what you have to offer? What if you're unbelievable at 1 or 2 events and that's exactly what they're looking for? So my piece of advice would be to be almost overly communicative, in terms of, you kind of can't say anything wrong. Just be clear with what you want, what your strengths are, what things you're working on that you're really excited about, how your body's feeling. Watch meets, tell the coaches that you are excited about the way that their team interacts with each other, or the way that the coach gives advice before a beam routine. That's always something you've wanted to experience. Like, those are things that college coaches want to know, because you're not just coming with gymnastics, your personality, your vibe, your energy, your dedication, that's all a part of recruiting and coming into a program. And just being a walk-on, it doesn't mean you're less important.
Right.
When I was on the team, so many of our walk-ons were key. And some of them ultimately ended up earning scholarships. If the money is available, your coaches will analyze and go, this kid works so hard and we have money. Why would we try to bring in a transfer or whatever when we could reward our athletes on the team for working hard? And so I would say another piece of advice is if you're coming in as a scholarship athlete and someone else is coming in as a walk-on, you both have a completely equal shot at making lineups, making a name for yourself, contributing, and helping your team to go all the way. There's no reason why a walk-on is any less important than a scholarship athlete. And walking onto a team doesn't mean you failed. It means that you're just given the most amazing opportunity and make of it what you want. The Twitter gymnastics, the Gymternet has really become much more prominent. Something is working in PR that I've realized, and I knew before, but I've really realized, is that Twitter is free speech. You can say whatever the heck you want. If you want to say something about an athlete or about a routine, go right ahead. But at the end of the day, these athletes follow these accounts. These athletes watch these things. It's hard because at the end of the day, it's a sport and we want to have constructive conversations about it because that elevates the sport and gets people talking. But when there's conversations that have to do with like, oh, this person sucks because of X, Y, and Z, and I don't know, they're going to look at that and that just really brings you down. I get frustrated because at the end of the day, if an athlete does a great routine and a judge decides to give it a 10, but she hopped, not the athlete's fault. And I think the Gymternet all agrees on that. Yeah. Everyone's like, it's not the athlete's fault, yada, yada, yada. But ultimately, and I'm at fault for this too, of calling out when it's not a 10 and it gets a 10, you want that athlete to enjoy their moment of getting a 10. And 9 out of 10 times, the athlete probably went, seriously, that's the routine you're going to give to? Like, you're joking, right? And so I know I need to be better at calling out those things because at the end of the day, I want that athlete to soak in the excitement of getting that score and enjoying their college experience. But if I could say one thing to the Gymternet as a whole, think before you post. We all need to do better about that.
Tuck it in drafts for a couple hours. Just tuck it in drafts.
Text your friend it instead. If it's really something you feel passionate about that you think is going to start a conversation that's constructive to our sport and to an athlete or whatnot, that's fantastic. And just do it. But if you're someone who loves college gymnastics and you're a fan, but you're tweeting nasty things about a program or a person or a coach or an athlete, they look at that. And what if that was you? So just think before you post. And as a commentator, I feel like it's my job to help with that conversation and only positively talk about the athletes and give them recognition and talk about their achievements. And if they have a mistake, show some empathy, but also explain why that mistake might have happened or whatnot. And my hope is that the rest of the Twitter world and the Gymternet can also imagine that you're commentating when you're posting on Twitter. Would you say that on national television? And just challenge yourself that way. And maybe we can make that space better.